We're going to tie these 9 things together in just a moment, but what we are discussing is how people with autism tend to be classy. We tend to outclass those who live in the neurotypical hive mind. This is an approach that most of us don't take because we never think of ourselves as being, high class. But stop and think about these things. Number one, you look like you. Now, how is that classy? Well, in my mind, it's very classy because I know people. Well, for example, I know some women, they love to wear makeup, and I'm okay with that. Enhance your product look as good as you possibly can. No problem there, but I know some women, they wear so much makeup and they have their hair done absolutely positively perfectly. They wear designer clothes, and I'm wondering, what do these people look like in real life? Because it's kind of like their whole get-up is a stage performance, and they've got on their wardrobe, ready to perform, and the world is their stage. What do they really look like? I don't know, but I'm okay with that if that's what they want to do, but men do the same thing. Sometimes we like to, we're more into flexing and trying to be bodybuilders, that's our thing. And that's okay too, that's not a problem, but when it comes to doing things like fixing my hair, yeah, I comb my hair. I'm not obsessed with it, at least not like I used to be. When it comes to appearance, I just want to look like me. I want to be comfortable. I don't want to look like you. Now, people who live in the hive mind, the way that they come across, their appearance, it's kind of like a subliminal signaling. It's like a subliminal communication. It's like nonverbal communication. The way they dress says something to them. The way they conform to certain styles, hairstyles, whatever. Notice the styles change. You don't have to notice. You've already noticed that over the years. Why do styles change? 1960s, we dressed a certain way. 1970s, we dressed a different way. 1980s, I kind of like the styles of the 1980s. That's probably my favorite decade. But why do we keep changing? Why isn't the 1950 styles? Why isn't that okay today? Well, people who live in the hive mind are signaling each other that they are part of the group. To me, that's not particularly classy. I don't think it's wrong. It's not a bad thing. It's just not a class act. So, because we're being honest, we're just being who we are. To me, being who you are is a class act. That takes us to number 2, which is much the same thing, only it's more about being honest in the way that we talk because we are a class act and that we tend to be straight talkers. Some people like to use the phrase, that guy shoots from the hip. What they mean is we just say what we mean and mean what we say. Get ourselves in trouble a lot of times, right? Have you ever said something and it didn't fit well with the people in the hive mind? Because they have this nonverbal language that is verbal. What I mean by that is it's not just what you say verbally, it's how you say it. It's the tonage, which is, kind of verbal, but it's the expression on your face and all of those things. We're just straight talkers. I think that's a class act. I don't see anything wrong with that, as long as you use a little bit of good judgment. We're going to tie these things together, by the way, in just a moment. Number 3 is we tend to be quiet. I don't know if this is natural or if we're just kind of forced into being quiet because nobody will talk to us, but I think a lot of it is just natural quietness. And I got to say, there are people with autism who are not quiet. Very few of them, but yeah, that's the way they express themselves. They just won't shut up. But I don't know too many of those people. Have you ever taken a road trip with somebody who just wouldn't be quiet? And if you tried to say something, they say, well, let me finish. And this person been talking for 3 states, hundreds of miles, but they're not finished. You got to be quiet till they're finished. People with autism, we tend not to talk much. In fact, I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, even today, if you wanted me to say something, you had to drag it out of me. If you asked me, how are you, an adult or anybody, I had one word answer, and that was fine. I'm fine. Would you go away now? That's what I'm thinking, because I'm nervous, I'm stressed out. I really don't want to talk to this person. I don't want to tell him how I am. And I'm kind of scared, you know. Fine. Yeah, I'm okay. But the point is, we know when to be quiet. People who live in the hive mind, they have this thing where they love to talk over top of each other because they are struggling to be the alpha whatever. And one way to achieve dominance is verbally. The person who talks the most controls the conversation, and it's all about control with these people. We don't understand that. It's not part of us. But to me, that's classy. That we're not constantly having a fight verbally. Number 4 is you have class because you are strong and you are resilient. Now, how do I know that? I've never met you, right? I know it because you have autism and you're still here. You have to be strong. Remember the song, The Boy Named Sue? Named him Sue, so it'd have to be tough. A lot of that applies to people with autism in my mind. I know that we have problems with anxiety and we experience stress, but the point is when you get knocked off center, which happens all the time, your natural inclination is to get back on center. And you get knocked off and you get back. Well, that makes you strong, makes you resilient. You keep going back to center. You know where center is, and it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked off. You may be frustrated, you may be anxious, but you're building neurological muscle, I would say. You just keep going back to being centered, to being strong mentally. I think maybe that's one of the reasons that so many inventors tend to be autistic, is because they are mentally strong. They really don't have a whole lot of choice. Now, again, they may be this way naturally, or they may have been taught this way through life circumstances, probably a combination of both. You also have class because you are independent. Talk about rugged independence. That is a narcissist. If I could, I would live alone in the mountains somewhere. And I may see a person once in a while, hopefully not. That's not reality. I'm not going to go there, but in my mind, yeah, I'm independent. Now, if you talk to people who live in the neurotypical hive mind, you know what they tell you? They say, nobody tells me what to do. They like to imagine themselves being independent. Well, they fight and struggle with each other all day long, and to them, that's independence. To me, that's not independence. Just exact opposite of being independent. But we tend to be free from the hive mind. Now, in some ways, we are bound to ourselves, to our, what will we call it, our condition of being autistic. I think that's a good thing. I think that's a positive thing. But the fact that we are independent, and we don't have this attitude that nobody tells us what to do. These people, they're not independent. Look at the way we talk about dress. Look at the way these people dress, They say, I'm independent. And they dress like everybody else. They are under the influence, under the control of the hive mind, of society. They are being dominated by the milieu. They don't even know it because it comes so natural to them. They think they are independent, but they all dress alike. They have the same hairstyles, the 50s, 60s, 70s hairstyles. All styles keep changing. I love the styles of the 80s probably more than anything else because they were a little bit classier. I sure didn't like the hippie thing. I kind of grew up in that, but I thought that was really weird. A little bit off topic here, but when I was a teenager, and that was during the hippie era, I didn't actually know any hippies. I mean, I saw 1 or 2 kids who tried to be hippies, but listen to the media, watch the media. They would convince us that all young people, teenagers, or young adults, they were all a bunch of hippies. That was the thing of the time. Not really. I mean, there were a couple kids who wanted to look that way, but they were influenced by the media. A little bit off topic there. So we are independent. We're not focused on style, of doing the way other people do it, of using their speech patterns. Sometimes we don't even have an accent. The way that other people do. Children in Australia a lot of times have American accents because they watch television and they watch Americans on television, so they pick up the American accent. Number six, number five is you are independent. Number six, you're classy because you don't confuse confidence with pride. Now, pride, is that a bad thing? Well, not necessarily. I think arrogance is a bad thing. I think narcissism is a bad thing. But you can be proud of your kids, right? You can be proud of your football team. I don't have a football team, but if I did, I'd be proud of it. You could be proud of your home state. You could be proud of your school, whatever. That type of pride, I call that patriotic pride, by the way. That's perfectly okay. That's not a bad thing. But when we talk about arrogance, people with autism, we couldn't be arrogant if we wanted to because nobody will let us. If we show the slightest hint of being self-confident, they want to knock us off center, as we talked before. So we have to go back and be centered. But what we find is, as we do that, we learn that, yeah, we can go back to center. We have this confidence within us, or many of us do, that is not the same as arrogant pride. So we know we can get the job done. Now, sometimes to get the job done, we have to do it alone because the other people keep knocking us off center. But again, I think that's one of the reasons why so many inventors are autistic, is because they have to work alone. They have the confidence they can do it. They know they can do it. They're frustrated because in the hive mind, everybody's trying to knock each other off center so they can get the upper hand, so to speak. We don't do that. We have self-confidence in that sense. We can do it if somebody would let us do it. Well, they're not going to let us do it because that's the way they behave. So we have to get alone by ourselves, and then we can do it. We have tremendous confidence. Number 7, people with autism have class because we tend to be considerate. And I really get tired of people saying that people with autism don't have empathy. I believe we do have effective empathy. I know that I do, I just don't express it. I don't present that way as much as I should. I think that's true of a lot of Aspies, people with autism. When I see somebody who is alone, my heart goes out to them. I mean, really, some kids sitting all by themselves, or the other kids won't play with them, or an adult sitting all alone, they can be perfectly content. In fact, they may be autistic and want to be alone. But I still feel sorry for them because I know what it's like to be alone. I put myself in their position. That's effective empathy. Now, the other type of empathy, cognitive empathy, I don't think I'm as bad at that as, or lacking, I should say, at that as are other people with autism. Because, yeah, I know what a smiley face is. It's happy. But still, we are considerate. And that's class act. We care about other people. And even though we tend to be alone and withdrawn a lot of times, and we are trailblazers, a lot of people say, well, you just don't care about others. At least that's the way we come across. That's the way we present. But no, we are considerate. We do care. We will help other people. At least most people that I've known who are autistic, they're actually maybe too considerate. I think they like to be liked, and they think the way to be liked by others, to be accepted, is to be kind and considerate. That's kind of the wrong motive, isn't it? But nonetheless, it's a class act. We are considerate. Number 8, and again, we're going to tie these things together here in just a second, but people with autism are seldom lazy. What is classy about being lazy? Not much. Now, that's not to say that sometimes we don't take it easy. And every person with autism is a little bit different, but what they see as being lazy is not laziness at all. Good example, there are a lot of people with autism who don't hold down jobs. And from the hive mind perspective, that's laziness. This guy won't work. What's wrong with him? He's lazy. I see. No, the reason we don't hold down jobs is because people in the hive mind won't let us, because we don't function as they do. Again, they're all about knocking each other off center. So they can climb their way up the social ladders, crawl their way up, claw their way up to that enviable status of being the alpha, or as close to the alpha as they can possibly be. And when you are autistic, you don't do that. You don't even know what they're doing. You can see them doing it, but you don't know how it works. Well, I talked to a therapist when she determined that I was autistic. She said I had a flat effect. That, I just didn't. And I told her, I just don't understand how other people think and how they behave socially. And I said, one of the things is they know how to fight. They fight each other. They know how to do it. I don't know how to do that. And, it's because I'm autistic. But when it comes to being lazy, nah, we're not lazy. We'd work if we could. And again, talk about inventors being autistic. That's because they are forced out of the workplace where they can work alone, where somebody isn't constantly knocking them off center so they can focus and concentrate on what they're doing. And I've told the story several times about when I was a kid, took piano lessons, and the piano teacher thought I was lazy because I never practiced. Except I did practice. That thing about reading music to me was stressful. But I'd practice. I learned to play by ear, and I never got really good at it. I don't think I have that underlying talent. But yeah, I practiced. I loved to play the piano. I practiced all the time. I wasn't lazy. I just didn't. Those little bugs, on a sheet of paper with lines on them. What is all that about? Probably if I'd focused, I could have got it. But no, we're seldom lazy. That's class act. Somebody who loves to work and get the job done. And if you want to hire somebody who's focused, hire a person who has autism, but you've got to be careful as an employer because everybody else, the neurotypical people, will constantly be knocking them off center. Number 9 is self-control. Yeah, self-control is a class act, and I don't know anybody who has more control than people who have autism, with the notable exception of meltdowns, which when I have a meltdown, and I don't have them very often, I used to have them like every day or several times a day, but it looks like anger, it looks like rage. No, I tend to be in control. And the illustration that I've used in the past, maybe you recall me saying this, is when you go to a ball game and your team scores a point, and all the fans go crazy, except for you. I mean, that is the moment when you can pick out the autistic people in the crowd. They're the ones who are sitting there eating their popcorn. What? We scored a point. That's the objective. That's what we're supposed to do. Why are these people going nuts about this? I mean, the game's going to be over. You're going to forget about it and go home. But now you're being crazy? No, we're in control. We have self-control in that sense. Now, when it comes to knowing what to say, the right thing to say, that's a different story. But I recall being in the hospital a few years ago and, just bored to death, had the television on. Didn't have the sound on because I don't like the noise, but whatever show was on, a movie, I think the people in the movie were dancing. I don't know, there was a nightclub or something, and they were dancing, making those funny faces and doing the thing with their heads, and they're waving their arms around. I thought that was hilarious. I just cracked up laughing because they look so silly. They're just out of control. People don't behave like that. Well, turn on some music and, okay, I do that a little bit, but not much. But we tend to be in control. And again, my therapist called that flat effect. How about just calling it self-control? We're not influenced by our environment like other people emotionally. And we don't express it emotionally through our physical, physical manifestations like shouting or screaming or flailing our hands about or jumping up and down. No, we don't do that. We have self-control. That's a class act. Now, let's tie all this together. When I think of these things, these 9 things, it seems like the common denominator in all of them is we have thought them through. Now, I don't think often about how I look. I mean, I comb my hair. I try to wear clean clothes. I try to groom myself, but it's not something I'm obsessed with. I thought about this a long time ago. I've already thought it through, and I just don't care. I want to be polite to people and present well so I'm not offensive. But yeah, I thought it through. People with autism, we tend to be thinkers. We're straight talkers. We think before we speak. We stop and think to ourselves, if I tell a lie and tell a lot of lies, I'm going to have to remember all of these lies. Well, when you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything because it's constant, because it's permanent. It's an absolute. Truth is the one absolute that exists. And if you tell the truth all the time, you're anchored to the absolute, so you don't have to remember it. Think about that. We do think about it. We think because we're quiet. And I could go through all these 9 things and tie them together. I'm not going to take time to do that because it's really not necessary. But the point is that people with autism tend to be thinkers. And that is what I think is the bottom line. It gives us a class act. There is a circle in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. When you click on that, you become a part of our family by subscribing to the YouTube channel. Upper left-hand corner, there should be a rectangle. If you click on that, we keep on talking. So we keep the conversation going. I call that the library of videos that we've made in the past. We'll see you all next time.